Hey guys, welcome to Check Engine Lights Anonymous, the only podcast support group for automotive oddities, car calamities, industry insights, track day excuses, and really talking about what keeps our engine lights on. I'm Lee Taylor. I'm a bit of a Porsche purist without much of a pocketbook. Joining me is Olly Anthony, who's a glutton for cheap car punishment. And off camera is Borko, who is pushing all the buttons and knobs for us. So let's get straight into it. How you going, Olly? How has your week been since we chatted last?
Yeah, nice. Well, yeah, just over 2 it's been, which has gone quick, which is crazy. Heaps has happened. More punishment with the I-30, which I'm sure we'll get into shortly.
What happened? What happened now?
Well, look, it's just I-30 stuff at this point. That's basically what it is. So essentially what we've got now is every time you turn it on first thing in the morning, we get a big cloud of white smoke, but then it clears. So it's fine, right?
That's fine. It's just an aging smoker. It's fine. It's a diesel.
It's fine. Everything's fine, but it's white smoke. So it tells me injector leak in potentially, head gasket, maybe there's a little leak in it, something like that. So it does tap on start up now as well, even though I've just done an oil change. So we could be in for some punishment. It just needs to last a year. That's it. And then it can go in the bin. So that's it. But
we're going to have a proper send off for that car when it does come around, I reckon. It'll be a fun way to make sure it explodes. On my end, I've had also a few car issues this last 2 weeks. The Fiesta has now decided to start knocking in the left-hand suspension. So I reckon at some point, either the sausage curb at Mala or the last hill climb, we have now got a top hat bearing playing games. So you're not the only one dealing with the joys of the aging cars.
Is your car stock? There's ST on the suspension side?
Yeah, well, mostly. So the suspension, drivetrain, all of that's completely stock. The car is technically still under warranty. I have upgraded the brake package because that's a weak point on most every Fiesta ST, is particularly the front brakes. So it's got very, very aggressive pads, aggressive disc, and braided lines all the way around with high temp track fluid. Means the car sounds like it's throwing plates at people whenever it stops and it's cold, and the brakes aren't as responsive when they're cold. But it's pretty good, but it will send you through the windshield once they're warm. It is massive upgrade just in pads and disc alone.
We spoke about that being car guys and being a bit strange. Is that I actually don't mind that if you have to have the first initial couple of pushes in the morning where you really have to put your foot through the floor, because the pedal just that's the negative side, is you don't have any brakes to start with. But once they warm up, you get such a nice pedal feel. I think that trade-off's worth it. But to most normal people, they're not going to want that. So
yeah. Well, when I bought this car, it was designed specifically to be just a weekend warrior because I had a work car at the time, and now it's become my daily driver. And its super aggressive brakes are now probably the most irritating thing on the car. And they're great. They're phenomenal. They are so much better than they've ever been. It was very much worth the money to have good brakes. But there's nothing quite like that perfect squeaking, grating pitch at 7 a.m. on the way to the gym as you come to the stoplight. And then every other man in Australia or every other time I get fuel is like, "Hey, mate, you need new brakes, they're squeaking." I'm like, "They're brand new." This is what they're supposed to sound like. Track day brakes squeak. They are loud, they're grumbly, they're annoying, but that's the point. If they weren't, they would be working.
Well, we should get into that, because I think that's one of the topics we want to talk about today is, first of all, the Teslas, and can you use them as a track car? And then something I wanted to talk about, which was heat management at a track day, just where people don't really understand that or know what that is. So they turn up and they think they can do 5, 6, 60 laps, just drive your car around the track all day. And the reality is a stock car cannot do that. So although it sounds a bit silly that you've got scrapey, kind of squeaky brakes and they don't work when you first push them and people tell you they're broken, why don't you actually get into it? There is a reason why.
Yeah, so track work, it requires a lot of heat management, thermal management, like you said. I mean, you're heating the car up. Everything gets hot on the track: tires, brakes, engine temps, oil temps. And as you're braking, particularly, the rotors get hot, and then they put more heat out into the wheel and tire package. And so that's why tires are so important. That's why they melt off, quite literally will melt off. But if they're not designed to survive high heat, they're designed to be driven around town or just commuting in, they're not, they cannot take the heat. So you end up melting pads off. And in my case, when I baselined the Fiesta, it literally melted the pad off, and which subsequently melted the paint off the caliper.
That's pretty impressive.
And
That's pretty impressive.
I was lucky that I didn't boil the seals out of the pistons. But yeah, you're right. It makes a big deal. And in a petrol car or gasoline car, you also have a little tiny, machine in the front of the car that's making 1,000 little explosions every minute that you have to keep cool so it doesn't, grenade itself. But to your point about the EVs, you don't have as much heat in the car from a engine, but what you do still have is heat from brakes and tires and battery performance and EV motors. And to your point, can they survive track days? I think they could probably survive sprints. I thought we've seen it happen. Got the Ioniq 5N. Drag racing them is quite popular in the States at the moment, EVs. I was at the hill climb a couple weeks ago, and there was a new class of car at that hill climb specifically for EVs. But those are short, 1-minute runs up the hill or up the mountain, or maybe like 4 or 5 laps at a time. I think it was Haggerty or the guys at Road and Track. I can't remember. But they did a test with the Model 3 Performance and how the battery would degrade over time. So with EVs, they're most efficient in stop and go. If you're using them constantly, the battery does heat up, and you have to manage the thermal energy of the battery on top of managing the brakes and the tires and the motors. But also your car's heavier, so you require more power to move the car at a high rate of speed, and the battery pack will degrade quickly. We're
Yes,
lucky in the sense that
I think you've touched on a lot of things there. So I think, and this was something for when I first went to a track day, I had absolutely no prior knowledge to, and it's about operating windows of components effectively is what you're talking about. So, and this isn't even on sports cars. So people think they'll buy the Ioniq 5 from Hyundai that you mentioned there is probably an exception. I think that's actually designed to do 2 laps of the Nürburgring on one charge and have that thermal efficiency to do that. And that's right the way through the package. So through the brakes, through the battery deployment, everything there. But most people, they'll turn up at a track day with a stock Fiesta ST is a great example of that. And they think, okay, I can turn up, I can just go as fast as I want around tracks and whatnot as well. And it's not even that the ST is it's a sport technology. That's what it stands for, right? But it's the same deal when you go to more premium brands too. So my background is I used to work for Aston Martin, and we took the V8 Vantages round Portimao. God, what a horrible job I had. And
bad day at work, Portimao, Vantage, oops.
Yes. And all we did was put new brake pads in, but we were running Pirelli P0s because they sponsored Aston Martin at the time, and because of the F1 relationship that they had with Red Bull and whatnot too. But I melted a set of those tires in 3 laps. That melted. And Portimao is very abrasive. That you run your hand over it, it's very, very rough. But we absolutely melted a set of tires there. And that's me driving, and I'm not a racing driver, right? So it's and even if you go to that more sports car level, and it's the same with the Teslas or anything like that, they're just not designed to work at that higher level. And I was chatting to at Aston, I was speaking with some engineers there, and they said to me, if you're racing a car around a track, it actually wears all the components out 7 times more quickly than you would on the road. That's a rough guide. It depends on obviously who's driving and what track and whatnot too. But that really clicked with me that, wow, that's a big deal. And yeah, you can only really do 3 flying laps with most cars, and then you've got to come in, you've got to do a cool down lap, because that's another mistake people make is they go flying around the track, pull straight in and stop. And then you've got all that heat that's built up in the car. You boil your brake fluid, you melt your tires, and they get a nice flat spot on the bottom, and you get thud, 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 brakes, and it's just, warp all your rotors, everything. So it's just big consideration if you're going to a track day, for sure. Definitely.
And you hear about it like F1 or like supercars as well. They talk about tire degradation. They talk about heat sinking and, brake temperatures and stuff like that. It's a big piece of performance. How you deal with temperatures and what your car operates in is important. And like you said, a normal road car is not designed to operate at the temperatures that require on track. And maybe some road cars can do it for short stints of time. There's some great examples of cars that can do track day work, for 3, 4, 5 laps at a time. But if you want to do consistent laps, you do need to be very aware of your temps and your uh, uh, be very aware of your temperatures and all of what's actually happening to the car. Now, the good segue to this is endurance racing. The 24 hours of Le Mans, Daytona, Sebring, all of that. A lot of technology is tested at those events with those cars that we eventually see on the road. Because if it will survive 24 hours of getting the absolute hell beaten out of it, it will survive on a road typically.
It's probably all right
And
for
also,
Darius driving down the shops 3 times a week, right?
yeah, exactly. And like they say in endurance racing, because I grew up around that, being involved, IMSA and Grand Am at the time. And if that race isn't about how fast you are, yeah, that's important to be quick on a racetrack. You can't be going around like grandma. But the biggest piece of any endurance race is surviving, is actually being reliable. If your car can survive those 24 hours, you're gonna place high, because a lot of vehicles, a lot of cars, even at multi-million-dollar performance car level, Daytona prototypes, GTD cars, GT3s, will not survive 24 hours 100% reliable nowadays.
But that's
Everyone's
what
gonna have a
happened.
problem. Yeah.
You're right. Do you remember the old Top Gear episode when they did the 24 hours around Silverstone and it was their first, and Jeremy Clarkson's at the end crying because they got to the
Yes.
end because it was, Richard Hammond crashed it into a Moser at the, in the middle of the night, and everyone was laughing because they didn't have an M3. They had a 330D. It was on a Retmobile, but it was for that reason, right? So it can go twice as long without having to have a pit stop. And it's just reliable, right? And it's just going to keep chugging around, keep getting the laps in, and they finished really well. They did really well, and that was 20 years ago now. That show,
Oh gosh,
which was
we're getting old, man.
wild to create. Yeah, I know it's wild. But and then the other example is Audi at Le Mans when they introduced the diesel. Do you remember that diesel Audi? And it just didn't they ban it in the end? Did they ban it? I think they did, didn't they?
I don't remember if they banned it or not. That was like that era of WEC that I remember and followed so closely. I remember that with us. I think the first year of the R18, our TDI, was the first year that I actually stayed up and then watched the entire Le Mans 24, and that was a very long day. A very much younger Lee. And they did the documentary about it, and one of the quotes of the documentary I thought was really interesting, and how quiet they were, because the philosophy was sound is wasted energy.
Well, it is, yeah, absolutely it is. Yeah.
And that's what they were trying to make sure the car was as efficient as possible, but also reliable. And a diesel engine can be both of those things because the parts don't turn at the same RPM, but and the range is much, much longer on a diesel engine. But then, racing happens and doesn't always go as well. And that iconic crash of Alec McNish rolling over the line, or not the line, but at the, I think it's the S's or maybe I'm getting my racetracks mixed up. It's after the start finish line, over the hill, left, right, downhill section. He clips the Ferrari and flies off, does the tumble, and is like throwing parts and carbon fiber at journalists and camera guys.
Nice. It's one way to get a good shot.
And there was this whole thing about, open out faster. And that was the first time we had ever seen a massive tumble from a full shelled carbon car. So we're getting off topic, but that was
yeah, I haven't seen that. So yeah, the endurance racing is good. I've never been to Le Mans. I actually have been invited a few times when I used to live in Europe. I've got friends that go every year. No.
What's
and
wrong
I've
with you?
I've got one friend that goes every year, and he loves it. He just basically drinks the whole time. They just sit there, drink wine, and that's it. So it's
on my
fun,
bucket list.
Yeah.
Like, I will do Le Mans before I croak. I swear.
Yes. We'll have to get over there and do it. Oh, very nice.
That'd be really fun. We should jump into some news. I think that's our next bit. So we had quite a lot of news, actually, over the last 2 weeks. We had the Melbourne Motor Show in Melbourne, and a lot of car brands were putting out some new cars. So we've had, the new RAV wasn't part of it, but the new RAV4 has been released. We had the new Aura 5, there's a new Geely. Subaru debuted the new Trail Seeker, which is their EV that looks like a Liberty wagon, which I think looks really sexy, but I'm partial to a wagon. We had Honda release the Prelude, which is a big thing for us here in
Alex,
Australia.
Alex on the button selling his Megane for it.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, the Borgo Alex, who does all of our production, has a Megane RS Trophy, a 300, and he bought when we did Right Lane reviews, 4 years ago, and that was our chase car. And his comments to us after the motor show was he was in love with this Prelude, which you can see on the screen. And I saw one actually driving around here in Adelaide yesterday, and it does look really good in the flesh. Like it's a very sleek looking car. It kind of reminds me of like a mid '90s Celica, of them sort of swoopy round
Or
edges to it.
Celica if you speak proper English, but yeah, that's
We're not going to talk about estates and wagons. No one's going to have an estate anymore because none of us can afford houses, but we can definitely have a wagon because we're poor.
I didn't know what a wagon was when I first came to America. I was like, I don't know what that is, but yeah,
It's what my ancestors ran across the plains on.
Exactly that. Exactly that. Well, if you're really posh, you've got the Mercedes have the shooting brake, right? And I think that sounds a lot more classy.
I do love that term. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
It just sounds worse than it is. But the G70 shooting brake we had on the channel 4 years ago was probably one of the best cars we ever had on the channel. It was incredible to drive. It looked really good, and it went like hell despite not having 3-liter. But anyway, news. we're running around. So the new Prelude is not a EV. It is a hybrid, but they've done something really funky with it. Do you know about this? How they've set up the drivetrain?
No, I've done Borko talking about it the other day. I haven't seen much on this.
So the Honda Prelude, they've done some really cool stuff with the drivetrain of the car. So it's 2-liter attached to a hybrid drivetrain, so there's EV motors running the front wheels. It's about 200 horsepower, so it's not a slouch by any means. So have you done much research on this car? Have you read the info on this car, Ollie? Because it's quite a cool setup.
No, I had a very quick look when Borko said he loved it and wanted to trade his Megane for it at the weekend. And
car's never leaving his garage.
I've just seen it now. I'm getting Alpine A110 vibes from that.
Yeah, it does look good.
That angle, it's, if you said to me the engine's in the back, put a manual in it, that's the way. But it's CVT 2-liter turbo, is that what we're saying?
Yeah, so it's CVT 2 liters. I can't remember if it's turbocharged or not. I don't think it is. I think it's just the standard 2-liter. But they've done something really clever with the software system. So it has a eCVT. And, historically in the business, we call CVTs continuously very terrible. But what they've done here is they've been really clever about it. So it can deliver, majority of its power across its power band, typical CVT. But they've calibrated the EV system so it will actually simulate a gear shift, but not feel the rubber bandness, if that makes sense. So it should cut power and re-engage power with a little bit of a like a hesitation or a thump, like it would in a manual car or like a sequential car. Now
I'm going to stand up for CVTs right now, though, because my X-Trail has a CVT, and they get a horrible rap in terms of reliability, for sure, 100%. However, once you get used to driving it, my car in particular, it's incredible. They're so nice to drive. They're so smooth. It really, really are. If you're just driving it day to day, it's lovely. Look, if I want to be on a racetrack and just having the thing pinned at 7,000 or 8,000 revs, well, look, that's not what it's for. But for cruising around, I could be doing 120 Ks and it's not even a 2,000 RPM because it's just got so much gear,
Yeah. And in a hybrid platform, it's even better because you need a certain output from the engine to charge the batteries or to provide power to the electric motors so the car maintains its speed. But with the CVT, it means it can maintain that power output at all times. So if it needs to spin at 1,500 RPMs to charge the battery, it can just sit at 1,500 RPMs and it doesn't affect how the car is performing or how efficient it is within reason. But in a performance scenario, it's not my favorite. I think Subaru's trying to do that with their CVTs. To be fair, I haven't driven any of these high torque CVTs yet, so I can't make too many comments. But the more modern ones that I have driven on some of the Mitsubishi products, particularly, are pretty good.
The thing that people that I don't get is with these CVTs, they're trying to give them these artificial gears. So manufacturers must know that's what we want, right? That we want to have proper gears. So why can't we have those?
Well, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But I think you saw Hyundai do it with the N. They've created, virtual gearing in the EV platform, so the car feels like it's changing gears, and people have said that it's quite good. I haven't driven that yet. The ZF 8 speeds, in particular, like the M cars and Mercedes, they are programmed to give you the sensation of a gear shift. So if you drive a M3 or M4 in comfort mode with the gear severity turned all the way down, it's effortlessly smooth. But as soon as you put it into, M1 or M2 mode and you put the severity up, it whips your head back between gear changes. And so, which I think is what we enjoy. we're a little bit masochistic in that way. But to your point, yeah, as enthusiasts, we want that. But I think we expect the duality of both, of wanting both.
And the CVT for the case I've just made is exactly that, right? It gives you that flexibility with the electronic drivetrain, and you can also have the gear shifts too. Well, look, and that's a good segue too, because obviously we've got some models from Honda booked in because they've kindly decided that they're going to work with us, which is fantastic. So when the Prelude comes out, we can get our hands on one of those and see what the CVT's like and what the drivetrain's like.
I've asked the question. So I'm hoping we'll get one. And we've got a CRV booked in for June, so we'll have a look at that one for sure. And we've also got Kia and Hyundai and Genesis back on, and we're having a chat with BMW to see what they can do with us tomorrow or this week. So they're back on board. We just got to find out what we can group. And that includes Mini. So we've got BMW and Mini, which is great. Some news.
It's really exciting. It's really, really exciting. I'm pleased to work with all of those brands. I think obviously you picked your EV4 up today as well, to give that a run out. How's that so far?
That's been great. So I've only been driven a couple of hours now, just kind of around Adelaide, and it's a cool looking car. I have to admit, as you can see, it's a really futuristic sort of car. It drives really well. It's very smooth. I mean, to be fair, I'm coming from a Fiesta ST, like in the last gen one, and so I'm used to something short and sharp and a bit bouncy around most roads around here, and that car is really quite smooth. So the plan, though, too, I'll take a step back there. So with this car, what our goal is to find out if this car can survive a week of commuting in Adelaide and do a trip out to wine country. So
a week with
there's
LT.
wine country close to LA within an hour, but there's also wine country in the Riverland, which is almost 3 hours away. So I picked it up at about 10 this morning. It had just about 600 Ks of charge according to the onboard computer, and I'm going to see how far I can get, and that includes a drive to and from Barrie, which is up in the Riverland, which is about 250 clicks one way, and we'll see what happens if it's truly efficient. The idea of ranging anxiety is dependent on infrastructure, I think, personally. So if you can charge it at home or if you can charge it at work, that's a pretty good setup. And then people, for some reason in Australia, need a car that can go 1,000 kilometers. Well, no car can go 1,000 kilometers unless you've got multiple fuel tanks. So can this car do the easy trip for a weekend? I'm sure it can. We're just going to find out.
Yeah, well, I was reading something actually last week, and they said that the average, I think it was from the UK, so I can't remember if it was here in the UK. It sounds more like England. That the average person drives 19 miles a day. So, why do we need that? And I think that's true for the individuals and personal car market. It's just when you start getting into the more industrial, commercial, long distance, that one trip a year that you do, that's when you need that extra range. But it's just how much compromise as an individual do you want to make, right? That's the go. I've got some thoughts on that EV4 though. So
all right,
you send me the photos. It looks great from the front. I the haunches on the front from the renders looked slightly different. I don't think that quite did it justice, actually. I think the photos you sent me were better. But I hadn't seen the back. I'm not sure on the back. What does that look like in person?
I wish I had one with me. I'll find one to put up. But there you go. Yeah, so the back is actually a bit funky. I don't mind it in person. There it looks a bit fat, and I don't mind a fat ass, but that's a bit much for me. Like,
I'm not sure. That's the first impressions. But that being said, the front of the car I didn't like on the render. So I'm happy to reserve judgment until I see it. That see there, that does not do that justice, that car. I think the design is very cool, but you see that in person. It's almost got like haunches, like a sports car on the front, and it really, yeah, we'll definitely have to show that when we put some stuff up in socials this week.
The vision out of it was really good. So that was one thing I was surprised by, because the front slopes so low. You actually get quite a good vision out the front windscreen. More so than you would in a car that's that low to the ground. I mean, it's a medium sedan, supposedly. And the vision out is really good. The vision out the back isn't so great because the way the rear end is shaped. And I'm sure that's because it's all aero work. And the car is rated for over 600 kilometers of range, WLTP, which is a lot for a car of that class. So, which is more range than what my Fiesta is rated for as a petrol car.
Well, I didn't know that. That's very impressive.
Typically, I get between 500 and 600 kilometers of range out of a tank of gas. So to get the same range out of the EV kind of negates the worry about having to top it up all the time, if that makes sense. So the Fiesta only put fuel in it every 2 weeks, unless I'm going to the Riverland. So why are we worried about range anxiety? As long as we can make sure it's full at some point, whether that be a fast charger somewhere or, leaving it plugged in overnight because, you're so busy with your car at 3 a.m.
Yeah. I mean, we've got a couple of Kias and Hyundai's booked in, so it'll be interesting to have a look at those and see how they perform and live with. I've driven a Tesla from London to Glasgow and back for a YouTube video a few years ago, and we managed it then. That was probably 10 years ago now, even. So yeah, I imagine for most people 600k's range is great. Yeah, you're right with the aero. I think you're bang on with that. That's probably what the styling is for the aero.
A little bit the window out the back, you can't see. You look in the rearview mirror and it's like headrest, haunches, window, and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize I was driving Camaro. Well,
the other thing I picked up on just from the photos there was the headrests. The headrests are quite interesting too. So how are they? They're just standard? I don't know why they just jumped out at me when I looked at that.
So the headrest in the EV4 are like this mesh material. It's almost like not a camping chair that makes it sound cheap. It doesn't feel cheap. It actually feels pretty high quality. And it's actually quite comfy to the head. The seats, and I'll get into this in the video on the channel, but the seats are not my favorite just because the position's a bit weird and I just like to sit lower and closer. But they will be comfortable. I'm curious to see how they'll be, like I said, on the drive out to the Riverland, because that's going to be nearly 3 hours in the car. And after the first hour, you kind of know if you're going to be comfy in there a while or not. I know when I take the Fiesta up there, it's about an hour and a half in. I'm like, all right, I need to get up before my butt goes to sleep.
Yeah.
So
this is going to be old man chat now, but mine is lower. Mine is lower back. Like, if you sit there for about an hour and you're just like, I need to get out or just move or something from my lower back. But yeah, that is old man's back, right?
I think the best seats that I've ever been in were, and have continued to be good as far as I know, are Volvo seats. I used to spend hours in an XC60 for work, and I loved being in that car. I was like sitting in a sofa. Very comfortable.
Very good. And again, more old man spec is, for me, BMW. They always get it right. They got, especially the proper end seats, like they're pretty good. I don't know what the real new stuff is. Mitsubishi Pajero Sport, randomly great seats.
Yeah, actually.
Genuinely, just out of nowhere, they're so comfy. They're unbelievable. I couldn't believe it when I got in one of those. It's like a sofa. And then Volvo, they're definitely up there too. They're definitely up there. Very ergonomic. God, this
They
is
are. And
old
the
man chat.
downside of the M seats.
Love it. Yeah.
Well, everyone talks about, those new carbon seats on the M cars with the testicle shelf in the front. And it's like, this
That's my
car should definitely
favorite
buy
thing.
me a drink.
That's that's my favorite bit. The little bit that slides out underneath your legs. Oh, I've never.
No,
I've,
not that bit. The carbon. So in the I wish we had identified a photo. In the carbon buckets in the M cars, it's got like a spot for each leg, and then like a carbon square smack dab in the middle.
oh yeah,
And depending
yeah,
on
yeah, yeah,
your
yeah.
leg to gonads ratio, you might be sitting in the
Yeah, that's normally like I've seen that before. Didn't they use that as a door handle at some point, or one brand? I've seen a door handle there, or like something. I think so. I might be going mad. I'll have to look that up. It might not have been BMW. So sorry, BMW, if that's the case. But yeah.
And, well, I've had that in race seats or like Recaros or Sable seats in production cars that had the harness through there.
I remember that uncomfortable feeling. Yeah.
Yep, that's fun. Nothing like splitting the boys. And it's so now you got really high sides as well. So, but what I was trying to say is that despite the applicable shelving, depending on your anatomy, it is actually quite a comfortable seat once you get in it.
Yeah.
But getting in it can be a bit interesting. And if you're not I don't know if
mobile.
Well, if you're not careful when you get into one of those high-sided bucket seats, you end up reminding yourself why you need to be careful.
Yeah, I've done that as well, getting into a race car. Yep. Yeah, with your helmet on. Yeah, that's
well, even just like my 265 trophy had the Recaros, and I that's one of the biggest reasons I bought that car is for those seats. And they were really high, really narrow sides on the hip portion. And it's almost the same seat that's in like the RS4 and the Focus RS.
Wingbacks,
Recaro did very similar. And if you get in, you have to kind of get in and over and then set everything down. Because if you get in and get stuck halfway, it's not ideal. And I've seen people split their pants sitting down too soon, or they've left part of themselves on one side of the seat while trying to slide the rest of themselves in the seat. And as someone who's witnessed and felt that sensation, it's not ideal.
do you know where this is? I've seen like this is one of the funniest underrated cars for somebody to get in and out of, and it is a BMW. It's a BMW i8. Have you ever?
Oh yeah, with the wings.
But they have the sills are massive and they're really high as well. And when I last drove one of those, we drove a again BMW in England very kindly gave us the i8. It was a carbon version, about £110,000 at the time. And I remember I was like 26, I'm like in reasonable shape, and I'm struggling to get in the bloody thing because the sill is like this, and even more so because I was just trying to avoid damaging it, because you could just scratch your feet as you go over. It's a press car, it's worth a load of money, you don't want to damage the thing. So but yeah, to watch people get in and out of one of those, that can be quite funny.
There is a technique of the sill sit. I don't know if you've ever seen this in like some race cars as well, where you sit on the tub and then you put in a foot and then you have to get in. But then not only do you have the sill problem, but now you've got the sill problem and the high side, gonad
crusher. Yep.
There we go. I was gonna say, what's the term when you're running and you run over the hurdle? Mid-hip hurdle that you have to get over to get into the seat.
Yeah. Why do we do this?
So it's like a double whammy.
Yeah. Why do we do this to ourselves? It's the same thing with squeaky brakes, damaged gonads getting into race car seats. Why don't we just drive normal cars?
And it's not just the boys. It is not only the boys that have this problem. I've had multiple girlfriends try to get into my Megane or into a press car or the M3 particularly, I remember we had. And then I tell them, anyone who gets in, make sure you watch the seat go over the edge. And they don't. And then you're like, well,
I tried.
You're not gonna forget that moment, are we?
No, they're great. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And then especially if you have the seat, roll cage, then sill, and you're wearing a helmet, race suit, can see about this much trying to get in, it's just a disaster, isn't it?
I
But
feel like
no,
a bobblehead inside of a tumbler dryer. Like it's trying to
maybe we
figure
should
out
do
how
that.
not to hit your head.
What do you think of this? So on our car reviews that we do, we have a accessibility rating, but for seats.
Put on a helmet and like a really annoying suit and try to get in and out. It's not a bad deal. It's
Yeah,
not a bad deal.
yeah. Let's
Or back seats are almost as bad because some rear doors, the way they're shaped to get in and out is actually quite difficult.
Can be tricky. What else have we got, mate? On the I know well.
So there was one other piece of news that was really interesting that came out the last few weeks, and it actually came out probably a month or two ago, but then it made the rounds again because of the fuel crisis thing going on at the moment. And that was that on the infrastructure.gov website in Australia, under the ways to reduce your fuel or to improve your fuel savings recommendations, one of them was driving 10 kilometers less than the speed limit in order to save fuel. I have a lot of feelings about this because my Fiesta at 50 kilometers an hour is actually more efficient in third gear than it is fourth, despite having low RPM. There's a brand new Triton running around that won't upshift into fourth or fifth at 60 kilometers an hour because 3,000 RPMs is more efficient to off boost than 2,000 RPMs on boost.
Sounds
and there's
noisy.
this whole idea from this recommendation. It is noisy. It's actually really annoying. That your RPMs and your fuel efficiency are 100% related. And that's not completely untrue. It's very contextual because none of us drive on a perfectly flat surface to begin with. So if you have, for example, a turbocharged car like I do or a turbo diesel, in order for the car to maintain speed, it will produce more power to maintain that speed. And oftentimes that means air means more fuel to make bigger bang to keep going. So you might be doing 2,000 RPMs at 100 clicks, and you might drop it down to 90 and then be doing 1,500, 1,700 RPMs. But in order for the car to maintain that speed, it still has to actually use boost to do that or use engine power. And as soon as there's a hill, consumption goes up in that moment. As soon as it's a downhill, consumption decreases in that moment. So while they might be looking at information about a perfectly flat road, sure, you're doing 90 instead of 100, you probably will save fuel. It's also really contextualized to the car you're driving, because not every car is designed to be efficient at the same speed.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think it's to do with the gearing. There's a lot to do with that as well. The only thing I would say is at motorway speed, oh God, I'm trying to remember the term here, but drag increases at the square of speed. So basically what that means is that, yeah. So if you go 10 Ks faster, well, you can double your drag effectively. I butchered that explanation, but it's so yeah, I take it, but it's just who's going to do that? Because you don't need to tell us that. I mean, they just spent the government. What did they do? They spent $20 million on a campaign to tell us to take roof racks and take some stuff out your car and pump your tires up. It's like, guys, what are we doing here? This is just it's ridiculous. Why are we
spending that much money on that?
Oh, I know. It's just crazy, right? So it's and then they give themselves a pat on the back and go, well, we did a great job, guys. And it's just, I think people know that. People know this stuff, it's just, nuts. Absolutely nuts.
But they're, and they're running around in very inefficient fleets.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that gets me is there's some government agencies, admittedly, that are doing a really good job of converting electrified vehicles or hybrids at minimum, which is great. It takes time. It's expensive. But also don't then lecture the public about our fuel consumption without the right context or the right information.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It doesn't sit well because, again, my Fiesta is another example of a car that's designed to be efficient. The car is not using any boost, so it's actually sipping. It does 4.4 to Melbourne usually, and that's perfectly fine. If I drop that car down to 100, it doesn't actually get that much better fuel mileage. The RPMs don't change enough for it to actually matter for that car. Whereas something like a diesel Triton, the top gear is incredibly long. Sixth gear in a new Triton is massive. And so you'll be running on the motorway at 110, and you might be doing, I don't know, 1,500, 1,400 RPMs.
You bang on
So
it. I think the illustration of that is you bang on. So like I've the I-30, for example, around town is way better on fuel than my X-Trail, but because of the gearing and the way that the engines work and the CVT, if we're going along the highway at 110, that's pretty close. Even the difference between a petrol and a diesel. That's why a small motor isn't always more efficient, because you have to absolutely flog them to get the same amount of power out of them. So it's just, yeah, it's very interesting. That very, very interesting.
And your point about aero is quite good. And aero does make a big difference. Drag makes a big difference in every car. And modern cars are typically well optimized for aerodynamics. If you have a car that's less than, I say 10 years old, because that's really when it started making a big difference, then they've been really well optimized for aero in most cases. If you're driving, like a Toyota Hiace, maybe not, but
or a tank.
Even then, it's probably they've worked on the square a little bit.
Yeah. Jeep Tank 300,
Jeep,
new Land Cruiser.
But if you're driving a hybrid vehicle, particularly, air makes a massive difference. Or EV, air makes a massive difference. And EVs are not as efficient on the freeway or on the motorway as they are around town, because they're needing consistent power. Whereas around town, it's less power required. And when they're sitting still, there's no power being taken up by the electric motor.
Yeah, I was actually
versus
you bang on
a petrol car.
I was having a chat with a friend of mine who's got a BYD Seal Performance, or a BYD C-Line Performance, the SUV thing. And he was saying, on the highway, it doesn't accelerate as hard, and it drops down, because he's got the Performance, and it's incredibly quick. It does 0 to 100 in 3 seconds, 3.5 seconds, something like that. It's insane. But he says, it doesn't have the same punch when it gets going. And it's the gearing. A lot of electric cars only have one gear, and they have to be optimized for a speed of 0 to 110. And I guess the manufacturer looks at that and goes, okay, where do most people spend most of their time? The average speed is probably 50 Ks an hour. So that's the speed that they optimize the gear for, because it doesn't have a CVT or 6 gears or 8 gears or whatever else it is as well. So yeah, you're right. They just and that, as a result of that, they're not very efficient on motorways. That's just not what they're designed for.
No, and a steady state power output is always less efficient on an EV anyway, because the electric motor has to be running at such a high RPM to maintain that single gear the entire time. Whereas a petrol engine, we've got a gear set, that we can go, okay, 2,000 RPMs on this motor, and first gear does, or first through second, gets you like 60 Ks, and then 100 Ks you're doing 2,000 RPMs, and the car's barely moving. So gearing is so important. And until we get a scenario where we've got gearboxes that can handle the high torque of EVs and do multiple gear sets and not explode with the ridiculous RPMs they have to hold on to in an EV, we're going to be kind of playing that game. I mean, Porsche has used it for performance, where the first gear in like the Taycan and the Macan turbos is specifically for acceleration, and then the second gear in the gearbox transfer case is for usability, and it only ever uses that first gear in like sport plus launch control modes. Every other time it just stays in that higher gear, because EV motors are so incredibly torquey. That's got so much spin power that they don't need what petrol engines need to keep the car moving, from a dead standstill anyway, because it's a different. So I hope that the government figures out that maybe they could change their wording a little bit and make it a bit more realistic.
Yeah, I think we're asking too much there, unfortunately. But it's look, it's the reality is, and the advice in the $20 million advert is correct, but it just didn't need to be what it was, right? So yeah, if you are looking
communicated,
if you are trying to save fuel, that is a good tip, which is, take
But so is
things.
taping every hole in the front of your car shut.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Things like taking a roof rack off that you're not using. Okay, fair enough. But again, if you're around town, it's going to make negligible difference. I did a lot of work in the adventure space here in Australia. And what we found was when we were modifying the 300 series Land Cruiser, and this is rough, obviously, and it depends on your car. For every modification that you make, so i.e. you put a snorkel on, or you put bigger tires on, or you put a roof rack on, whatever it is, roughly speaking, it adds about 1 litre per 100. That's a very rough guide for everybody. So if you have
It's not
three
terrible.
of those, if you have 3 of those things on your car and you take them off, it can make a big difference to your overall consumption if you're doing a lot of Ks. So it's, that's it's good advice, making sure your tires are checked and your pressures are checked. We actually spoke about it last time. Completely makes sense to me.
And it makes a big difference when you're towing too. Like as soon as you start towing something, particularly the vehicles we have to tow things in Australia, your consumption just goes through the roof in most cases because you're adding weight and drag.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, weight is a killer. That's it. And that's Lotus's old mantra as well when racing was it modify and add lightness. That was it, wasn't it?
Light is fast, fast is light.
Yeah. So weight is the killer for everything, and you get utes and whatever else, and it gets more expensive to haul it all around. So it's just is what it is. And again, in most cases, there are exceptions to that rule too. But yeah. Anyway, I'm sure there's a few useful bits of advice in there for people and some news too. So I guess for the next section of the podcast, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what we've got coming up next. And again, we've kind of been through some of this already. Obviously, we've spoken about Lee and his EV4, but what else is going on, mate?
Well, we've got quite a few brands on the go, like we said. So Kia, Hyundai, Honda, BMW, Genesis. They're all coming back on with us, which is great. So we'll have some new car reviews and some additional content out on the channel soon. So keep a lookout for that. I've got the EV4 this week. We're going to put it through its paces and see how it does. So there'll be some short form content for that. And then Ollie and I will be in front of a camera in a couple of weeks with some more vehicles up in Brisbane. And then if everything goes well, we'll have some extra stuff out of Melbourne too. So keep a lookout. Now, if you have cars or fun stories or anything that you think would be interesting to see on the channel or talk about on the podcast, please shoot us a line. You can find us, Lee at rightlanereviews.com or Ollie at rightlanereviews.com. We've got us on the channel. You can find me on Instagram as well, which we'll put somewhere on the video. So feel free to give us a like, shout out, subscribe to the channel, because that's how you're going to find out what we're doing. And then if you think you know someone or have one, or have a story or a car or something, please share, because we'd love to feature the interesting stories. We did a story about a Yugo a couple of years ago that was really interesting, and we'd love to get a bit more, something like that on the channel a bit more.
Or even a breakdown of racing, because I know we've got the supercars going on at the moment. They've just been over in New Zealand, I think it was last week.
That was a crazy race.
Yeah, there was some interesting. I was going to use the term racing, but it was almost bumper cars at some points.
It was a choice.
But look, again, I think that's potentially one of the best racing series in the world. It's really good to watch. Really good to watch. So yeah, if you want to hear more about that and a bit of a breakdown of what we think, then yeah, let's hear about it. Yeah, let us know.
And feel free to drop us a line, ask some questions, send some points our way. We're always happy to hear. I mean, I'm on the comments on the YouTube channel quite a lot. So yeah, feel free to reach out and we'll see how we go from here. So thanks for watching, guys. I think that's pretty much a wrap up for us, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.